and welcome to AI Decoded with me, Marc Cieslak, the BBC's AI correspondent. This week, we're asking a question that goes right to the heart of what makes us human. AI can write essays, generate software code, summarise research papers, even help plan journeys and holidays. Every single week, tech companies claim another task that once required expertise and years of experience can now be completed with a carefully worded prompt. But as AI becomes a bigger part of our lives, are we becoming less skilled? Are we witnessing something researchers are calling cognitive offloading, outsourcing our thinking to machines? To explore whether AI is enhancing human intelligence or quietly eroding it, we're joined by two people with slightly different perspectives on this transformative technology. Owase Jeelani is one of Britain's leading paediatric neurosurgeons based at Great Ormond Street Hospital, and from Helsinki, Dr Tapani Rinta-Kahila, who conducts research into how digital technologies transform human work, expertise and decision-making. And of course, we're joined by AI Decoded co-host Dr Stephanie Hare, author of Technology is Not Neutral. Owase, I'm going to start with you, if I may. Medical technology is always evolving, from stethoscopes all the way through to things like MRI scanners. Now, this programme's recently followed some of your work to separate conjoined twins, joined at the head. The surgery was successful, and that wouldn't have been possible without some advanced technology, but also a massive amount of human skill. So what do you think of the concept of AI assistance?
I think it's hugely, hugely important, AI assistance. I know that's a strong stance, so allow me to explain. We are focusing perhaps a bit too much on the harm that AI can do. Well, I mean, clearly there's the potential for enormous harm, but there's a lot of focus on the harm it can do to us humans in the future. There's not enough attention given to the potential harm that the human mind, our way of thinking, can do and does to humans.
Okay.
And it's important to draw that balance because AI, when used properly, and we will discuss what that means, AI, when used properly, has the potential to improve our way of thinking exponentially. But the trick is getting that balance right, where we use it at the right level, in the right way, to answer the questions, appropriate questions, but not rely on it too much.
Okay. Tapani, I want to bring you in here. The word de-skilling sounds dramatic. What exactly do researchers mean when they talk about AI-driven de-skilling?
Yeah, so there are a couple of different meanings actually for that. So typically, I think the way we think about it, especially with AI, we see it as an unintended side effect of technology in a way. I call it skill erosion. So that could be something that happens. You're an expert, you rely too much on automation, AI, and then you lose your skills over time. But then you could also refer to not being an expert yet, but you are actually training to be one. And in the training nowadays, you often have many automated tools, and then you never really grapple the real kind of not nitty-gritty part of the work because you have such a sophisticated tools, and then you never really become that skilled. And then there is also a third meaning, which is more of a, from the work organizing perspective, de-skilling has been defined as simplifying the work task. So using automation to simplify the work task so that less skilled workers can do that. So then you can actually hire less skilled workers who are typically cheaper labor.
Owase, I want to bring it into your sphere of expertise, into medicine. If a young doctor learns how to practice medicine with AI support from day one, could they develop differently from earlier generations of clinicians?
For me, Mark, there is no question of that. It is, the analogy that I would use is, I'll go as far back as the discovery of fire. When humans discovered fire and the use of fire, a lot changed, not just with our physiology, but with our way of life. We learned how to use it, for the most part creatively, and then the humans changed and adapted to this technology. AI is going to do a similar thing for humans. Humans will adapt and adjust and change physiologically, anatomically, because AI exists in this world. The question really is, how do we monitor that change and how do we lead that change? And that's, for me, the question is, AI can go in many different directions. It is a tool which is available to us at the moment. But what we do have a clear say on is the direction we want to end up in. What would we like to become in 20, 50 years' time? One, we have some control over that for sure. And the pace with which it happens, we have control over that too. So the doctors of the future, the people that are really going to crack the enigmas and get the inventions and do the things that we really would like them to do, are the people that learn to use the AI as an augmentative tool. We've spoken about this before. I think the word artificial intelligence is the wrong characterization. There's nothing artificial about artificial intelligence. I would feel much more comfortable if we change the lingo. If it's possible at all, I don't know, but if we change the lingo...
That ship has already sailed, I think.
Bring it back and call it augmentative intelligence, because that is what it is. It's here to stay, whether we like it or not. But if we can use it to augment our intelligence in the right way, that's when we make the most of it.
So what do you perceive as the risks in the future if doctors become really, really good at interpreting things like AI recommendations, but less confident at challenging those recommendations?
Okay, so the first thing we need to remember is that Moses did not bring AI down from the mountain. That's not where AI came from. Okay, so where did AI start?
Yeah, I don't remember that anywhere in my Bible study at school. I went to a Catholic school and I was educated by nuns, and I definitely don't remember anything about large language models in the first bit of the Bible.
The Ten Commandments, the last time I read them again, does not talk about AI. It does not come from there.
Thou shalt not prompt was definitely not in there.
Indeed. And so, and that's really important to just keep in mind. And, I'm making light of it. But the point is, a lot of what AI is based on, not all of it, but a lot of what AI is based on is human generated or human interpreted knowledge, how we see the world, what our reality is. And that is what a lot of our language models are based on at the moment and the AI platforms. Now, why is that important? Because there are shortcomings in the human way of thinking. Our way of thinking, we deal with data. Our way of thinking is replete with biases, is replete with prejudices, and our strategic ambiguity, right? And it is important to bear in mind that the AI agents that are being developed at the moment and will carry on do have those shortcomings as well. So we can't take them as gospel. They are good assistants, but they can make all the errors that humans make. And it's really important to be cognizant of that. So for the doctors of the future, if they can learn to work with AI in that fashion, for certain tasks, they far exceed human capabilities, for sure. And they've proven that time and time again. So great. It's a really good tool for this particular task. But if you then turn around and say, okay, how would you separate a set of twins? Can I just rely on my AI? That's not going to work. But where it will help is when we did our most recent separation of twins, there was one particular task I needed to understand. If I use distractors between those two bones, how much distraction can I achieve over a period of a few weeks? Well, we have an AI model that we've built to give us that answer. We used that model. It was quite accurate. So for that specific bit of information, AI was wonderful. But the whole package, how you put it together, is still the domain of the doctor.
You're an expert in your field, though, and you have taken, you have exams at regular intervals and more.
Too many of them.
Yeah,
Far too many of them.
You are constantly tested and constantly learning what you actually do. When we think about these technologies and their applications outside of fields where people are experts at an elite level, are there different sorts of risks?
Mark, the reason I'm called an expert and the reason I am doing the work I'm doing is because I work at the edge of my abilities pretty much every week.
You're in the swimming pool and your feet are only just touching the bottom of the pool.
Yes. Yeah.
That's your comfort zone.
So when we're doing these surgeries, a lot of these surgeries have not been done before. We have to push the boundaries. We have to discover new ways of doing things. We have to invent new platforms. So this is all iterative, which adds, every time we do this, adds to our knowledge base that little bit. And working at the edge of your capabilities is what makes you go forward. Now, if you, for whatever reason, take that away from the doctors of the future, they will not progress as we do. AI is not going to come in and create creativity for them. That is very much a human thing. We have to lead that and then use AI as an augmentative tool.
Stephanie?
My understanding is that robot surgery is really, really good for a lot of different types of surgeries. And many surgeons have been worried that they could be replaced, and yet we don't replace them. We keep human surgeons at their ability where they could scrub up and do an operation today if they absolutely had to in an emergency situation. You don't want those skills and experience and confidence to atrophy. So I think about that a lot for all of us. Now, most of us aren't under the pressure of being a surgeon, but all of us have to be able to constantly have that awareness of who am I with my augmented self, all of my tools, all of my technologies, of which AI is probably the most powerful at the moment. And then who am I, just on my own sheer talent, experience, and how do you train? How are you mindfully training yourself? That's what I worry about.
Good. I want to bring in Tapani here. Because Tapani, what do you think when AI and human judgment sort of disagree? Who do you think ultimately should have the final say?
Oh, well, depends on the context, obviously, but mainly human. Like in most cases, definitely human. It is a very powerful augmentative tool, especially for those who are already experts who know how to use it very mindfully and responsibly. But there's a certain tendency, of course, humans, like there's a whole body of research on automation complacency. When we have automated systems, like let's say in aviation, you're a pilot and those systems work so well, we kind of get used to those systems working really well. And when sometimes something happens, technology fails, or for some reason you can't use it. Maybe it's a type of situation that the technology hasn't been, designed to deal with. And then that's where the concern is that have you been practicing that muscle, whether it's cognitive muscle or physical activity, have you been actually training that? Are you ready to react to that situation?
I can see Owase chomping at the bit there to get to respond.
Absolutely, because I'd like to follow it up with a counter question for you, Marc, and you, Stephanie. When are you going to be ready to, God forbid, you need medical intervention, medical advice? When are you going to be ready to go to an AI agent and say, I need my gallbladder taken out. I've heard that you are very, very good and Google's done a great job with you, so on and so forth. I trust myself to you, Mr. AI agent. When are you going to be ready for that?
Never.
I can say very confidently, absolutely never.
So here's the thing. When we look at human interactions, I mean, it certainly applies in medicine, but I'd go as far as all human interaction. It's fundamentally based on trust or lack thereof.
Yeah.
But let's talk about trust. And for me, as a children's brain surgeon, day in, day out, week in, week out, I have parents that come to our hospital, parents that have sick children, and parents that entrust you with their child, potentially their most beloved, their most prized possession. And it's why do they do that? Yes, they have read about you and so on and so forth, but the ultimate thing is trust. They look at you, they talk to you, they place their trust in you. So the responsibility lies with you. In my mind, it's you can never go back to those parents and say, oh, by the way, I did a really good operation. The AI agent didn't really play ball today, so sorry, didn't turn out quite well, but the operation was good. That's just a nonsensical response, right? So you carry the ultimate responsibility. You've been trusted with something, and medicine in particular, but as all human intervention, it's based on trust, and that trust is fundamentally between humans and humans. AI can augment that. It can augment you in your work, but it cannot take over that role. That's critical.
Would you get in a self-driving car?
Yeah, I've thought about that, often at the end of a late shift when I don't feel like driving home. The short answer is yes, because for me, that's a much more repetitive task, and the stats will show that in time they are safer. They already show that, but so I'd be more comfortable with a self-driving car. When it comes to surgery, that level of care, that level of detail, I don't think so.
Do you think someone could appear more highly skilled than they are because they're working alongside AI?
Yes, it happens all the time. You look around and people come to you with these beautiful presentations and your students often, and then you ask them the first question and they fall apart.
So those people, they actually understand a lot less than they think they understand, or at least they understand a lot less than they're purporting to understand.
What they present is just fantastic, but when you have to dive into what's behind the presentation, the substance is not quite there.
Okay.
You got to use it or you lose it. right? With your brain.
Is just a muscle. As Tapani just said, it is a muscle. You use it or you lose it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And
So the choice is yours.
Tapani, do you think that, listening to Owase, do you think that medicine represents the clearest example of risks around areas of de-skilling?
Oh yeah, it's a very clear and really good example because that's where we don't want things to go wrong, and that's where that interpersonal trust, what Owase was talking about, is really important. But obviously there are, because of the kind of general purpose technology nature of the modern AI systems, is that they can do so many things in different contexts. So obviously that concern is kind of in many areas nowadays. And something I wanted to also point out, I think the acceptance of the risk, if you hand over something to a machine, I think that has a lot to do with the cultural and social context where we live in. But then, if once AI systems are so good that they can be shown statistically to lead into fewer errors than with human surgeons, that might change. And it's, I guess, the general social, cultural, technological context in that how much have we actually immersed our lives with technologies and automation that might change over time. So it'll be an interesting thing to see and to think about, is that, what are we willing to hand over to machines when they start performing really well, when they, let's say, they are better or more trustworthy kindergarten teachers than humans, than fallible humans. So, but yeah, I mean, right now we are still fortunately not at that stage.
Is this about, though, things like trust are also about, what level of accuracy do you need in a certain task or in a certain job, something that you're commissioning? Liability is another thing. So maybe we're willing to tolerate more risk for a PowerPoint presentation if we're a management consultant than we are from our doctor, where we want is, zero risk. Thank you very much. Right. So there's that question. And I also wonder if there's a question that would be useful for us to think about in terms of when we introduce AI into building our skills and knowledge. Do we need children working with AI right now, or do we need children reading books, given that we know literacy rates are really struggling? Do we want children doing mathematics the old-fashioned way first, and then they graduate into using AI at a later date? Ditto at university or for junior doctors starting out. Is there something valuable about learning things the old way, the graft way, the painstaking way, so you develop the feel to sense checks that when AI is wrong? I don't know how you develop that ability if you've never worked without it.
Well, Owase, I mean, as a neurosurgeon, what does neuroscience tell us about how the brain develops, and if AI has any effect on that development?
This discussion, this whole global interest in intelligence is really telling. I lecture quite a bit, medical students, doctors, and what have you. You go into a lecture theatre and you say, okay, how many people here have heard about artificial intelligence? Pretty much everybody raised their hand up. I mean, there may be the odd Luddite who's not, but pretty much everybody, 100%. Then my next question is, how many people here have heard about organic intelligence? And there is at most a handful of hands that go up. And I find that utterly fascinating. AI has been around in the public domain for perhaps the past 15, 20 years. The human brain, organic intelligence, has been in development and us using it for 1 million years plus.
Intelligence 1.0, if you like.
Intelligence, indeed. And it's really imperative that we spend a lot more time understanding intelligence per se, organic intelligence, because a lot of the questions that we're asking about AI, where it would be good, where it, we need to watch it, come from the lessons we learned from organic intelligence. So, for example, the human brain. What does the human brain do? We've got 86 billion neurons. We only need a handful to really breathe and eat and walk around. What does the rest, 86 billion neurons, do? Put in a sentence, the human brain is a tool of prediction, period. It's a prediction engine. That's what your brain does, my brain, everybody's brain all the time. Now, people who are that little bit better at predicting the future are the people we call lucky. There's nothing godsend about being lucky. It's just their algorithms that little bit better refined. They can see things perhaps 1 or 2 steps clearer than the rest of us. The BBC will do the world a huge service if we can have a program called OI Decoded, Organic Intelligence Decoded. That's my proposal.
That's getting commissioned next week.
Okay.
I'm taking it upstairs. We're taking that one upstairs. Okay, I've got an audience question now, and this is one for you, Stephanie.
Okay.
It's from John Horan in Columbus, Ohio. And he says, is AI using the Gillette razor marketing strategy where they essentially give away the razor for free, but make up both cost and profit on selling the blades?
Yes, a great question from someone from the great state of Ohio, so I'm not surprised. I think that's probably pretty accurate. It's also like, the drug usage model, your first hit's free and you get them hooked and then they have to come back. So the goal is you're looking for stickiness when you are building a technology or a tool. You want to give it away to people, let them play with it, let them see how much it makes their lives better. And then if you threaten to take it away, what you're hoping is that they will howl and protest. And then you say, that's fine, because we have this lovely subscription model.
That's where the money comes in.
And then, they're using it for the rest of your lives. What you want is that to be embedded in their lives, and then they can't live without it. If you start to get dependent on AI and you can't do your work without it, you can't do school without it, you don't know how to navigate your emotions without it because it's your therapist, it's your girlfriend, it's your companion, that starts to get quite dangerous, that kind of dependency.
Owase, do you think that AI could actually enhance critical thinking rather than replace it?
I do. No, I think, go back to this. I think AI has the potential, enormous potential, in many different ways, whichever ways you let it go. It has the potential to do us enormous harm. There is no question of that, no question. And I completely understand the people who say, shut down all AI. We don't want an AI now. I understand their sentiment. But we need to be pragmatic. AI is here. It's going to stay whether we like it or not. Our best chance is to understand it and to work iteratively with it and try and stay at pace or ahead of it. That's the optimal. The tasks that AI is really good at, we should be using it for those tasks, the repetitive tasks, to augment our way of thinking. It is our plan and AI feeds into it. That is what we should be doing. The risk that we run, as we just heard from Stephanie, is if we outsource our creativity, which then becomes a very, very sort of fundamental human trait, something that we learn from a very young age. If we outsource our creativity, that is where, Stephanie used the word dangerous, I'd use the word sad. That is where we start to lose our humanity. That is what makes us human. We are special. All of us here, all 8 billion of us, are special in our own right. And we need to maintain that. That is imperative.
Tapani, where have you seen AI genuinely improve human expertise?
That's a great question, Mark. I'd say personally, in areas, there are some areas that are not your core expertise. Like I'm an information systems researcher, but I'm not an expert in tax law. And if I have to understand something about tax or tax deductions, it's actually very difficult to interpret the tax regulation that's available on tax office website. But I've noticed like AI can be helpful in that. I can actually upskill myself in tax by talking to AI that makes it more understandable. And then I can go back and check like, okay, does it actually check out what the AI is saying? So in that sense, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if people are using AI every day, if people in the audience are using AI every day, what practical habits do you think could help preserve critical thinking? Stephanie, what do you think about that?
I mean, I know some very heavy AI users, to the point where it's, because we forget, it depends also on what's your entry point. So for me, for instance, when I use AI, I try to only do this on my computer, and I have really strict rules for myself. But that's because I've been studying this for a really long time, and I know, and even then, I'm fallible. I also get tired and lazy. I try not to go to it first, but there are people who might be going to it through their Amazon Echo. So they might have a few of those around their house, and it's just there. It's in the ether of their home life, and they and their children are talking with it. Everybody's talking with it. And you just learn to kind of, when you're lazy, you just ask the AI, what's the weather? What should I cook? What should I wear to this party? What's the fastest way for me to get across London, in 30 minutes, etc. And you stop actually just realizing that you could have done that heavy lifting yourself, So I'm just saying there's that versus if you're doing it on your phone, going in through your computer, if you have sort of rules for yourself about it. And I understand it. There's no judgment here. All of this was pushed out on us really fast. Everybody's experimenting with it. Nobody had best practice. But I think now that we're seeing some of these studies coming in, like Tapani and others, who are saying, be really careful how you're using it. Maybe we don't want this in schools right away, or maybe not for 6-year-olds. Maybe it's better for when you're 16 and you're a bit older, or even at university. Yes, we want to prepare you to go into work, but we really need you doing your core skills of literacy, numeracy, your creativity skills, constructive thinking, critical thinking. How are we going to really embed those first? And that goes for us adults too.
A better understanding of organic intelligence then. Well, that is all we have time for. A big thank you to all of our guests. If you have any thoughts, questions or feedback on today's programme, do email us at aidecoded@bbc.co.uk. The QR code is on screen right now, and that takes you straight to the AI Decoded YouTube playlist. And every episode is, of course, on the BBC iPlayer. We'll see you next time.